Hey, welcome to Friday Freakout. Yeah, this is a pre-impromptu. I was talking to my wife and she basically kicked me out of the house into the garage because I was just talking about bike stuff way too much on a Friday morning. So I figured, hey, this is going to be a great opportunity to give a shout out and just be a free form of let's discuss what the hell happened during the week. And thank God it's Friday, like TGIF Friday, and just figured I'd just reach out to community and see if anybody wants to watch kind of like a Friday recap of the week, right? Hey, it's been a pretty busy week for me. Hopefully, in your neck of the woods, bike shops, also your cycling communities have been riding and having decent weather to enjoy all those things that are cycling related. As a bike shop perspective, it's on hour every hour something new is always hitting or craziness is just coming abroad, and I figured it'd be a good time just to talk about it, like a couple of those things. Just kind of a free form, not structured for any way. It was just formulated in my head because I see another channel doing something similar on Fridays, and that individual basically doesn't say anything about anything. It's just about either his golf game or tacos. So not saying anything bad about that, but I figured, let's actually talk about some real stuff and try to put some light, happy spin on some of these perspectives. Things that I accomplished this week. Not as much as I ever want, but it'd be a man in the garage, one person in the garage. I don't know. Am I a man? Anyway, a person in the garage doing his thing. And yeah, I got a few repairs done, some pretty decent, substantial, nice bikes. And just got a few that I'm going to be working on too. So either the case, it's one of those scenarios where I don't feel like I got everything I needed or wanted to get done. But on the flip side, I got a lot done. So yeah, we had some disruption in the house. My daughter hurt her foot, so we had to address that. But she's fine. It was a really bruised foot, so it's like one of those deals. So any kind, as everybody else knows, if you have kids, there's like the unexpected disruption almost on a weekly, daily basis. So it's already anticipated, right? But there's a little more intense than others. Being a week that we're going into Halloween here in the States and probably abroad. I'm not sure if other countries celebrate Halloween like we do here. It's become more of a marketing piece, but it's kind of I would say, let's go out and have some candy. It's fall and all that. But the cycling season for a lot of us is like, it's the end of the season kind of thing. Everything's shut off. But anyways, hey, I got a few of you to jump in and chime in. This is awesome. 11:351. Thank you for chiming in. Good afternoon, morning. Well, it's morning here. Afternoon in Europe. Yeah. So yeah, your guys are later in the day and about ready to call. Go to the pub and have a great weekend. I hope it's good there. Oh yeah, we both have something to offer, of course. I was just, yeah, of course. I just like joking there. So don't take offense if you know who I'm really talking about. But in any case, affirmable, yeah. LOL. Hey, we're just gonna have a good time today. And this is gonna be pretty short because I got things to do. We got a lunch date, so that kind of thing. But what I've been working on is a brand new bike from Trek called Checkpoint Plus. And I'm going to see if I can pull up the specs on that guy. And, however you feel about Trek, they are still pretty much of a leader here in the United States. And we do have a corporate store, which actually used to be this Lee Cyclery, which is a store I worked at, that bought, and it's been changed over to the Trek thing going on. So it's an e-bike. I typically don't work on a lot of e-bikes, but this is a good customer of mine. And it's basically, you're thinking like a new bike. Why are you working on a brand new bike? Well, let me show you here. And it's a good customer. They bought several. Well, they've had a lot of bikes tuned up from me. Okay, I got it pulled up here. And so it's this guy right here. What am I doing to this thing? Well, number one, double checking it, making sure everything is good on it, because I worked on a couple of their other bikes that they bought brand new, and the build was not perfect. Let's put it that way. Even though they were $2,000 hybrids, but they were not perfect. And there's some things there. And when they bought this, I'm like, you might want to drop that by. But I do have a service that I do a ceramic coating to the frame. So it's a brand new paint job. You do a ceramic coating on there, also wax a chain. And also I provide a static fit, which those stores don't provide any kind of fitting. So I'll get them on the trainer and all that, and kind of run over the seat height and all that, make sure it's comfortable for them. So this is kind of like what I literally have in my stand right now. It's on the third stack of ceramic coating, which takes at least 4 hours to dry between them. I usually last a little bit longer than that. I got the chain waxed, all the parts cleaned up and everything. So that's what I'm currently working on, and a few other projects. But that being said, that was the fun piece of the week. And it's just, it's kind of funny to see the newer tech, and I should go back to that. I want to talk about that. As bike mechanics, we and consumers alike, it's nice to have bikes that you can actually work on yourself. And this particular guy, I mean, when you add the e-bike and the e-bike motor, that adds a little more complicity to it for sure. This cable, this one shows a picture of SRAM, but actually the one I'm working on is GRX componentry. So it may not be the 6, might be the 5. I don't know, but that's the color that it is. So I don't know why it'd be different. But in any case, the cable shifting is nice. So she may have gotten the 5. It is a $6,000 bike, which she got. So here you go. Same paint job, 2 different models. Weird. Oh, because of, well, the model. Okay. So there eludes the confusion. If you're a consumer, like, what the hell? So this is cable versus electronic shifting. So you have cabling there, and you got a housing that goes to both hydraulic brakes, which I'm a little more partial to Shimano, mainly because of the fluid that they use, which is mineral oil versus the DOT fluid, and DOT fluid seems to deteriorate the internals of those brake systems. So this is, the benefit of, hydraulic mineral oil, in my opinion. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other opinions out there, but it also seems to bleed a little bit easier when you need to bleed them out. Her beef that she had is, even though it's straight from the factory, it already came tubeless set up. Which, some people would think that was a positive, and some people are like, never done tubeless. So there's still a disconnect with tubeless, and she took it back to the shop because it wasn't holding air, and basically they just said, we just need to air it out. Lo and behold, I have to double check it, but it started pumped up when they dropped it off, and it went flat or low again. So that's something even on a brand new bike, you need to check that out. And the gear cluster is different on this, even though it is a Shimano big pie plate. That is a different kind of, instead of your standard free hub body, it's a little bit different design. So they design it so it can accommodate a smaller 2 to 10, all the way up to a bigger one there. So that's kind of cool. The other thing that bike mechanics really don't go like, for the most part, is these cables that you see here go inside the headset, and they go through the inside bearing of the headset. So if you have a bad headset bearing, you have to basically redo your whole brake lines and shifting lines to get access to those. And in addition to, if you do have a bad housing that needs to be replaced, either or, you have to go through this whole headset nightmare, where we would have been like a 10-minute fix is now a several hour situation. So those are kind of the things that, you know, even on the newer bikes, they all want to go to this aero looking and so forth. But is that what, you know, 80-90% of the actual general public riding? And this person would give like two nothings about the headset here and how the cables are integrated, that kind of thing. So that's a full carbon bike. It's kind of cool. But in any case, I want to just kind of shine that. I'm going to think about maybe doing a review of this, since I have it in my stand, of, you know, the pros and cons of the tech perspective of the mechanic looking at this bike. Not to really say that you shouldn't buy it or buy it, but, you know, at least get the understanding that when you take it in, it's going to cost you a little bit more on the front end. But it is a pretty nice bike with an ISO little thing there. It gives you a little more flex. Does not come with a dropper post, but it looks like there's a port for it, so you can integrate a dropper post on that guy. So in any case, that's the fun, new and shiny thing that I have in my stand this week. So figured, you know, feature it. I'll probably make a little in-depth detailed video on it, and how, you know, a little bit of backstory on the checkpoint, and maybe feature like the new iteration of like the checkout, which is the full suspension gravel bike, which is kind of, take it as you will. In any case. Oh yeah, looking at the chat. Yeah, both great, just different. Yes, we are different. We was talking about another channel that's very similar. When I had long hair, people would get us confused. So, and we do definitely sound differently, and we definitely work on different bikes, different categories even. So in any case, I mean, respect, no worries. Johnny, Bike Guy SLC from Salt Lake City. Another guy here. Every city needs a guy. Yep. Every city needs, like every suburb of every city needs the person, for sure. And yeah, we're definitely contributing to our community and so forth. The simpler, the better for me. Yes, absolutely. That's where I kind of like, when you look at those custom made frames, I mean, this bike was like $6,000, right? You can get yourself like a, you don't have to go really expensive if you don't want to. You can probably just get a premise, one of those, a tumbleweed frame, or a Fairlight frame from England, or even like Linsky's are like dumping their titanium bikes right now. So they have been for a little while. So you can probably find yourself a good titanium bike and a group kit, and build something up pretty inexpensively under that $6,000, and have a bike that's, you know, cables you can get back to, and you don't have that weird headset thing, and it's going to ride great. As well as, you know, better, you know, I wouldn't say better materials, but different materials and different ride qualities and so forth. But anyway, that's a great point. But yeah, I've gone, you know, with my age, the simplicity is better. So I was talking to a buddy, or not a buddy, I was talking to a customer. He picked up not this checkpoint, but a different checkpoint I worked on earlier this week. And during the conversation, we were talking about the new checkout, which has full suspension. And it occurred to me, like on the spot, like you just add a whole new layer of maintenance to a gravel bike, which is supposed to be a little more simplicity. It's kind of like bringing back the hardtails, 29er hardtails fast. That's kind of like, you know, some of the gravel bikes are looked at. And then you add a full suspension. So yeah, the rear shock will definitely need to be overhauled, as well as the front suspension. And the suspension that you get out of it, you could probably almost, not quite, but at least give you some of that edge if you just went to Redshift, you know, stem and the Redshift seat post, or similar brands out there, to give you that kind of comfort and quality and that kind of thing. But in case, but yeah, I mean, crazy. Well, other little bits, you know, I saw an email came to me from Trek corporate store saying, oh, $50 off tune-ups and $25 off their, $50 off their level 2, which is their $180 tune-up, and $25 off of their level 1. Technically, they only have 2 tune-ups, and then they have Monster a la carte one, I think. And of course, they're corporate, so they're really designed and laid out and Kool-Aid to like subcharge a whole bunch of laundry list things underneath those. But when I was in there earlier this week, it was number one crickets, but then again, it was during the day, midweek. Can't really fault that. But look, you can see their service racks that holds all their bikes, and they're basically empty. So their service section of their business is done for the season. I'm a little bit different. I'm more boutique-ish, maybe, smaller, and I don't do volume. I do quality, not quantity, which a lot of shop models can't do that. They do have to have some kind of level of quality. I mean, I do have to have some quantity too, to some level, but I'm out 2 months. So their season's done on Halloween, and mine is still going through Christmas. So you see it out of the wheel. It all depends your community and so forth. And obviously my community is really supporting me as the former customers and new customers alike, which is great. And got rocked this week. I had like 5 repairs on top of already scheduled work. So it's still kind of chaotic for sure. And, any case, it's Friday and I do work through the weekend-ish, so I still put in several hours on Saturday and Sunday, just not full days because got to fit in family time in there. But yeah, it's been a good week. I would say, nothing urgent that needs to be done immediately, but it gets some good quality stuff. But in any case, thanks for joining in on this hot minute of checking out craziness on Friday. And a lot of bike shops, for the most part, we get through the girth of the repairs, and there's some always lingering for the next week or the weekend. And then you're getting ready for the weekend sales, which a lot of shops right now are hearing crickets for weekend sales. So it's really just really quiet. But in any case, between the huge bits of news of Amazon laying off a whole bunch of people and some other topic stories are huge. One I haven't talked about yet, but I mean, who in the room has heard of Haro bikes? BMX in the 80s and the 90s. And then they got into mountain bikes, and then got into some gravel. And I saw them at the show last March at Cabda in Las Vegas, and they did have a really decent looking line of bikes. But yeah, so before we jump on that, let's check out here. Yeah, love it. Yeah, I've heard that the dot fluid is kind of corrosive or corroded parts, or they've had problems. The SRAM has had problems with their brake levers. Using the corrosive stuff, and mineral oil seems to be less problematic. But it goes back to Hayes and Mergura days. Well, no, Mergura used mineral oil, but Hayes, when they used dot fluid back in the 90s when it first came out, it was just nuts. Anyway, and yes, 45 gram headset cable routing. Erg. For consumer bikes, NASCAR is one thing, but for consumers that don't have mechanics that work on their bike every day, like the pro racers, not a good idea. I'm saying it right now. Not a great idea for anybody at all. But in any case, but yeah, this is, checking out Haro bikes. Got a fly on my screen. Weird. Thought I killed all those. So pretty much everything from Haro is on sale. I'm assuming they are direct to consumer because you can add a cart here. I was just looking at one of their bikes. They also, Mossy, or however you want to call it, is their other company that they own, which is Road. And they pretty much have no inventory there. So we'll just look at their Road Gravel, which they were introducing this year. Not cheap. Apparently not cheap. Your cheapest price point gravel bike, I mean, it's full carbon, granite, and Looks like a full carbon guy. Looks like, what kind of componentry do you have? Looks like they have them in stock, different sizes. So at least looks like their Haro line still has inventory. They believe they have 600 dealers in the United States. Oh, this must be their road bike. This only goes to 30C. The checkpoint goes up to 50C or actually 36 is max on this guy. So it's more of their road version. But this is DI2. Actually, that's not a bad deal for DI2 comparably to, well, it was 554. Now they're 1,500 off. So I guess Haro is the bike deals. We'll get into the release and bicycle retailer about how they're doing the state of the state, but that's what you're looking there. What they consider specific gravel. Buzzard carbon, that's kind of cool. Let's check that out. 2,500 GRX group. Yeah, so yeah, that's it's hard for me to swallow anything that's over 1,500 personally in any bikes to $2,000. I mean, but compared to the other guys in the room, they have inventory. It looks like a few models still, but they're heavily discounted. So there lies some cracks in the system, right? It's like one of those things where you see really their website. So I've seen a lot of the companies, when they start getting articles written about them, you're starting to see their inventory go under, like that white bikes in Europe. And you go to their website and like everything's sold out. It's like they're already checked out. It's like they got an investment. That was the story, is like they got a new investment of money, but they technically don't have any inventory, or at least it doesn't show on their site. So that really shows the distress. And right now in the States, I mean, it's hard to tell if you're out of distress or not, because of it's really hard to get inventory in the United States with the tariffs, or trying to keep the price, and they're redirecting that to other places, other markets, and so forth. Anyway. Oh, the Salty Maker, thank you for joining in. Appreciate it. Good morning to you too. SRAM, 45 gram. Thank you for chiming in. SRAM finally admitted that DOT is a bad idea. Go figure. Ask anybody in the automotive industry. But yeah, so yeah, I wanted to see what your guys' opinion on the Haro. If you've not heard of Haro, Specialized gets sued. That's not a shocker. But anyway, Haro makes cuts to adjust market. And this particular article is an interesting read in the sense, because it is, the CEO is actually talking here. And it's not just hearsay or whims of anything, but he directly relates the struggles with Haro, hoping to have a banner year this year with a new couple models. And, it's really, it fell flat. And that's really sad to see, especially on a smaller company like this, that he basically blames the tariffs. It's really just destroyed their ability of navigating, bringing in product. They are still holding ground, like, we are going to be here, we're going to still hang tight and go forward, but they're going to have definitely some cuts, either line people or what have you. So there's those pretty big issues. And they've had some, like other brands, GT, that was from Pond Holdings. They shelved the line. I'm not sure who owns Redline now. Diamondback was part of Pond. I didn't realize they got paused too. I'll have to see. That was quietly snuck in. It's hard to keep up with all of this. Unless you're dealing with the brands directly, you're not going to know a lot of the stuff, because it's happening so fast and so many different things. It's extremely problematic. But there is, I would say I've heard there's some positive news, and this doesn't relate, but Steiner, and a lot of you may have not even heard of Steiner, but they're a custom frame builder in California. And looks like maybe they're making some of the frames for Waterford, or did, but they make their own house brand, but they also are a white label company. In other words, if I know a guy bicycles wanted to make a titanium or a steel frame with my specific geometry, I could have them build up some frames for me here in the States. And my buddy, I had a call with him yesterday. He said an NPR, like a latest NPR article, mentioned Steiner, and they're growing. So that's good for them. But it's definitely showing a shift that maybe some of these companies that are buying frames from other markets, from Taiwan or what have you, or decided maybe they'll start pushing or having frames built here in the United States for their particular brands. The complicity of that is just huge, and it's just insane how difficult it is to just build a basic frame in the United States and all the parts that go to it. And that's not including the componentry and the headsets and the wheels and all the other stuff that goes with it. But at least they're showing, there's an older article here, but at least they're getting some steam behind them, and it's working for their advantage, I guess, where a lot of companies are not. So at least there's some positive light news out there somewhere of something going on in the United States, and that's just horrible and scary and weird. And if you're watching in from the outside in, sorry. It's the best thing you put it. It's like, it's just been nuts here. But a lot of local shops, like including myself, really doubled down on the service aspect of our business. And that's a good portion of my business, and it seems to be doing really well. So, and it's carrying me through, and I've, developed a really great customer base. And my community, I feel like it's more of a community than a customer base of cyclists. And it's kind of like once they've had me do a few of their tune-ups, they're kind of like a VIP status in the sense. And, they'll ping me on the phone and go, hey, could you take a look at this? And if I'm available, I'll try to help them out. I'm basically an appointment-based business, mostly, but, I do help out when I can, and if I'm available. But it really does, the service part of it, and also selling used parts and frames, and that has really been, whole bikes are really gone soft, but the parts and frames have really picked up to offset that. So those are the two things I would say going into the wintertime, which would be probably most beneficial for bike shops, and also we'll see how to help support your shop. And that kind of really reflects our communities here in the States, where a lot of people are working on fixing bikes versus buying new because of the economical or their financial situations are maybe disrupted or anticipated to be disrupted. So in any case, it's pretty scary, as you can see. Bob the bike rep is, shock and awe. I was thinking about putting him in the tree out front with a bike piled up underneath him for tonight's Halloween festivities. So we'll see if I have time to do that. In any case, it's been a wild and crazy week here for me here. But the weather's been cooler, but still not terrible. A couple windy days, but other than that, not too bad. So people are, I'm sure, able to get out and ride. Still got some repairs coming in and fixes and getting people refreshed. Or I have another like older Roubaix I'm staring at right now. It's like complete overhaul build within like a whole bunch of internal routing, which for brakes, it's all cable actuated. And to do the cable routing through the bars themselves and through the frame, specializes great design of internal routing. It took me over 2 hours to get the cables and housing done right without kinking anything, right? Because you get a problem with kinking those cables with all those bends, and then you're like, son of a bitch, I gotta like redo it, that kind of thing. I didn't have too much of that. I just took it low, low and slow, and able to get it. But I mean, stringing up cables and housing for internal on like old school rim brake wheel carbon bike on a job that took me over I'm not even completely done yet, but 2 hours, which would have taken 15, 20 minutes. Slow mechanic 30. Now I'm not as fast mechanic, so me 30. So the frustration there, even that's those problems have started and compounded for the last 15 years. So I can completely bitch about cable routing for like the whole time, but I'll save you that. In any case, thanks for chiming in, Salty Maker. I feel for bike shops. There abundance of used options out there. Pandemic purchases that have been gathering dust. Actually, there's been a lot of bikes gathering dust for decades. In my market, there's a pretty decent population here in the Front Range of Colorado in the millions. So you got Denver Metro, then that bleeds all the way down to Colorado Springs. So it's like a 4-mile drive of congestion population, and it's still growing or have been growing massively. So, and it's also a huge cycling conducive market here. With that being said, a lot of people have bought bikes and either they moved on to a newer bike or they got into one of the other 800 things you can do in Colorado. Like, I'd rather go hike or kayak or snowboarding or whatever. Sometimes a lot of those bikes, road, mountain, with all those categories, one of those categories is probably in somebody's garage that's not being used. I almost guarantee it. So we're a consumer society, so we just constantly buy. And with that being said, I think we have almost enough inventory to last us a couple of years just with the used market within my community anyway, to refurbish, clean up, and get back out there to not really show any shortages. Although if you have problems with parts coming in, that might be a problematic, like rubber, cables, housing, bar tape, consumables on a bike. But on the flip side of that, most of it, my business is based off of the used market initially, and it's been very fruitful. And even today, I can buy a bike I saw a full carbon bike in Denver, a 5200, go up like $400. I mean, that's pretty low. They're not all that way, but that's just telling you those bikes are dipping. They're not moving. People are not buying right now in my area because we're going right into winter, and with the state of the state and everything, it's kind of really cooled off that as in full bike. So I've seen a lot of bikes discounted. So when I'm ready to buy, which I have still inventory to get through, but once I'm ready to buy, there's still going to be plenty of inventory and plenty of deals to get to keep me going. As a bike shop locally, can just send a guy out with a van with $1,000 and go pick up me 10 bikes and go pick them up, chop them down, sell the parts and the frames and everything, and triple their money. Or depending, of course, there's also some duds out there as parts go. But if you do it right and you inspect it right, there's some profitability to be had to help support bike shops and communities and so forth. And that also feeds into if you're willing to ship and sell like on eBay and so forth. There's a huge market where I found those who live in the southern part of the states, which is their riding season because it's not too hot. That's where you start selling a lot of the frames and parts and that in January and February. So there's an opportunity there, and that's what the market is laid out. So yeah, repairs are going to be softening, but the parts and selling is going to be hopefully consistent. It was in the last 2 years for me during winter. Not to say this season might be a little different, which it will be interesting. Needless to say, for all of us, but I think that's, a little more proven, a little more of a better concept. And I'm sure in your neck of the woods, your shops are, if they haven't adapted or adjusted to that, are going to be leveraging that. That's if they're not really heavily into e-bikes, because e-bikes is still pretty good. There's still like a $400 rebate here in Colorado for e-bikes till the 1st. So e-bikes still have some push. It doesn't go completely away. I think it just goes about half going into January. So the e-bike sales will still be supported by the rebates going into next season, but who knows after that. And your market is used bikes alive and well. Price out of the new bikes. I mean, you can really find some gems there. And I think we've had enough disruption in the market that the new bikes, the volume is down. Case in point, the new checkout, there's not very many of them. I don't believe there was actually released. And the ones that have been released, you'll see a few in the stores, but there's not a depth to those two models. I think it's the same frame, but two different groups. And talking to the local shop here, and they're like, yeah, we have this one, but we don't have very many sizes to choose from. If you to order one in, it's like pretty hit and miss. And they just released that. So that's just telling you, they really didn't double down pretty much in the United States where the majority of the other inventory is. Not sure, or maybe they didn't build as many. But if you think about it, if you backtrack that particular model, the release date was this month. Production and shipping had been about 2 months ago. And then production and design and all that for a new model is probably a year, maybe a year and a half before that. So, and considering the market is at the beginning of January, those orders were already placed and the volume is already there, and anticipation of numbers of being a big sale of a new bike model, they may have been just light and polite into the United States market. If you're a Trek dealer out of the United States, let me know if the availability in your market on those checkouts are sparse or good or whatever. Just kind of curious, but it's pretty sparse here. I mean, and I'm seeing it all over the internet. Like it's like, all the social medias, people have been doing reviews and riding them and all that. So it's kind of interesting, needless to say. And I probably would go for the Specialized's new road bike that came out too. Oh no, love it. I have not seen the Scott's Bicycles short videos shaming customers for asking for a discount. Hopefully it was in good taste and funny. I'll check it out though. Is it like the Bike Farmer kind of funny ish, dark humor, but still trying to be funny? Or is it like, yeah, you really shot yourself in the foot? Because some people, when they start going on social media, including myself, think we're a legend in our own minds, and it sounds like a great thing that we're saying or doing. It turns out it falls flat, or actually is more of a negative release of that particular thing. In any case. Yeah. So in any case, yeah, it's like, going into Halloween, it's, it's a fun time for just, Halloween itself. But, when you look at the time of year here in the States, it's our fall, and, November, we've had nice Novembers before where I think we're going to have we've had zero snowfall in September and October, which we typically do. So trending, according to the meteorologist, which I'm actually married to one, has a historically November and a very dry winter, less snow. So not great for the skiers and snowboarders. They're hoping for some good winter snow, or those who are snow lovers. But going into November in my neck of the woods looks like it's going to be an opportune time. I mean, you may have to layer up, but it's going to be clean and clear and be able to do a lot of good riding in November. So I look forward to doing that. I mean, it's supposed to be in the 70s degrees Fahrenheit here on Sunday. So that's, once you hit 70s degrees in Fahrenheit, I know a lot of you out of the States, go by Celsius. That just means a jersey and shorts, nothing more. No arm warmers or leg warmers. It's more sunscreen. Especially in Colorado, when you get used to the colder temperatures, I don't know how much scientific it is, but it feels like we endure cooler temperatures a little bit better. Depending, because the thing is, there's not a lot of humidity in our air, so it's really dry. So it's a dry cold or dry cooler temperature. So it's not as problematic for being colder, wind chill, and so forth. So, but in any case, I mean, we can have that extends like another month. So therefore, you should, as a bike shop, should have at least another month of some service coming in versus being completely shut off. I remember years back in the 90s where it would snow really good in September and your season was over, like done. Because everybody's like already thinking skis and snowboards here because we have a huge market for that. And a lot of people will do it's very outdoor active communities here. So either you ride, run, hike, kayak, wakeboard, whatever in summer. In the winter, you go cross country ski, snowshoeing, backpacking, snow camping, for those really wackadoodles. And snowboarding ski industry is huge here, obviously, because Vela Sports owns like most all the other ski companies. And once that hit, is done. So a lot of shops, not corporate stores, except for like REI. I was going to say Sports Authority, but they're no longer. Dick's Sporting Goods. They're going to be shifting to their ski season stuff, which they probably already have. Kind of like, your skis come out when Santa Claus comes out at Walmart. So it's kind of like, that's kind of how it all goes. Just nuts. I was at the store yesterday. No, 2 days ago with my daughter. And this is the week of Halloween, right? Like, the promotion. And on both sides of the Halloween section in Walmart was Christmas stuff. They're already starting to squeeze out Halloween. It's like, oh my goodness. Yeah, it's like, and I'm sure they have the inflatable Santa Clauses in their garden center, I'm sure. But in any case, looking at bikes going into the Christmas season, in some markets they do sell bikes, like kids bikes, and I've heard stories or companies are going lean to no kids bikes. So at your local bike shops, it might be a little bit harder to find. Here's a little gold nugget for you. They're not, not high end by any means, but if you're just needing to get a bike, Metum, I believe I have a link below. They still have some kids bikes available. So, or if you see any bikes that you're thinking about getting for Christmas, now would be the time to buy, like this week, because coming later be procrastination. Either it'll be very limited or not at all, because the supply chain on those are a little bit faster and they've got depleted and they're running through them. And I'm pretty sure you'll see a lot more empty racks in that category going into Christmas. So unless you want to be spending $3,000 on an e-bike for mountain bike for kids, because that's first kind of ridiculous, but there's a kind of customer base, not to alienate them at all. It's just, that's not the general. For myself, if you can't keep up, well, just ride harder. Those kids need exercise. They need to get out there. They need less electronic devices, right? So get them on an e-bike, not an e-bike, and I'd say there's a place for them for sure. But for most kids, it's just me out riding and having a good time. But yeah, that's kind of my wackadoodle perspective on that, if you want to call it that. Let's see here. Oh, you can't. Let's see here. Back to the chat conversation. Oh, you can't tell if that video was either trying to be funny or not. That's weird. I mean, you would hope it would be more like it's funny or like that's off color. Anyway, that's too bad. Hopefully it turns out to be funnier than, because people do get burned out on people asking for discounts. But that's just part of retail. I mean, if it's really getting underneath your skin, maybe you need to be doing something else, that kind of thing, or take a break, or need more sleep or time off or something. Let's see here. The Salty Maker. I'm riding rim brakes. Good for you. Same here. What are your thoughts on future availability on brakes and rims? Right now, good. I mean, brand new production runs probably are tapering a little bit. I still think they make a 105 from Shimano, but Shimano and SRAM, they still make some rim brakes. But like I mentioned before, on the used market, there's such a huge volume that we have in the used market. And you can get, for brake specific, what I've been selling, which I'd hope I'd get more, but I haven't. But I've been selling like the Ultegra brake sets. You may be a little bit older, but they do just as well than the newer ones, the older versions. I think they're the BR 6500s or the 6600s. And those have been going for like 30, 40 bucks for a set that are in real good shape. So not too expensive there. And there's a ton of them out there. So the used market is going to be fine. New might be a little questionable, but you get Ultegra for half the price of what a new one is. If you know what you're looking for, and and you'll be able to navigate that. As the rims go, they're still making quite a few rim brake rims. Bicycle Wheel Warehouse in California, they do a lot of rim brake wheel sets still, and custom built ones as well, without being outrageously priced. So you can get yourself a pretty decent wheel set from them too. That's they're pretty good. I worked with a couple wheel sets for a couple repairs of mine from them, and they're pretty solid. I mean, really solid, that kind of thing. All right. So the future of it, there is going to be around. I mean, there's a big push for disc, but there's such a huge still market for a lot of older bikes, and not that much older, like 5 or 10 years older, that it would still be able to that. And then there's the used market on wheels that just are out there, which obviously it's going to be a little buyers beware on those. Was more things could be wrong with those, but I mean, I still come across some decent sets of wheel sets, and you can probably find those between 100 and 150 bucks. And they're going to keep going and going for a while, because you're talking about wheel sets from the late 90s to like 2015, good 20 years of inventory that's been sold and dumped and sitting in people's garages. In the United States is such a huge chunk there. It'll last quite a bit for the used market, I'm sure. I haven't seen any shortages. Let's put it that way. Here and there's fluctuations. Like if you want something very specific, yes, there might be a little bit of shortage, like in a 10-speed or 11-speed type thing, where they didn't make as many. But when you're looking at like the 9 speeds to 10-speed wheel set that can get to free hub bodies to 10 speeds, it should be a ton of them out there. Anyway, good question. Obviously, that's a great question. Longevity, upcycle, not landfill. Question there. That's great. Keep things out of landfill. Ride them. Oh, thank you so much, Pedro Oldo. I'm sorry, I butchered it, but appreciate that. Love my channel. Just getting into bike transporting from long distances. Running. Okay. Transfer from riding to running. Live in Indiana. Yeah, it gets cold here very soon. Oh, it's shifted on me. What sort of clothing do you recommend for riding in the cold? Ooh, good. Winter is coming question. Winter is coming. Um, it's layers, just like everything else. It's layers. And there's a lot of clothing companies out there that support that layering system. So your basic bib, short, and jerseys, your 70-degree Fahrenheit and warmer. Then when you get colder, you need to start covering up those legs and those arms. So there's arm warmers that you can do, so you can shed if you have multiple temperatures during your ride. It starts off colder and gets hot. Then you can do a base layer on top of a long sleeve jersey. So for colder temperatures, I would say in the 40s and the 50s, a base layer and a thermal long sleeve and thermal long sleeve short or pants, excuse me. So the trick is for me to get colder, and I don't like to go below the freezing mark anymore. I have an underlying condition of asthma, so it gets triggered when it's really cold temperatures. So I kind of avoid that. Not bad. Not, and I can take inhalers and all that to offset that if I wanted to. I've become more fair weather with my age, but fair weather, I still ride in the colder temperatures. So in the 30s and the 40s, really what gets to me is wind, the wind chill. Right. And if you're a neck of the woods where it has a little more humidity, it'll have more of a bite to it. So what you're going to be looking for is windproof or wind resistant front clothing or windproof jackets to go over like 1 or 2 layers. So basically what you're trying to do is develop that layering baking inside. So you clam bake yourself with heat. And you'll get a little warm, but don't try to get too sweaty because then you'll start freezing. So that's a delicate balance. And all depends what kind of stringent riding you're doing too. But a lot of the technical clothings will help push that moisture out, even though there are wind or a waterproof barrier on there. They're supposed to go one other direction to help shed off that excess, or you'll have pit zips and that kind of thing. You can vent yourself. So there's a lot of technical pieces out there, and they're expensive, usually very expensive. But you can probably find a lot of them on sale right now. And depending on your size and all that might be limited on the sales side of it. But clothing is not a moving item for bike shops and cycling industry for the most part. So there's going to be a lot of sales already currently, and you can contact those companies direct or look at their websites and see what kind of layering system or riding conditions they can get to. But clothing can be tricky, but you definitely want to cover yourself and layer and have an area on your bike or a pack on yourself where you can shed. So if you need to get, take stuff off of you and put it in a place, that's always a good idea. Or vice versa. If like, oh, it's a little colder than I thought. So you can put that windbreaker on to cover it up. And there's all those little pieces like the covers that go over your helmet or skull caps underneath the helmet, booties for your shoes, thicker socks. But typically when you thicken the sock up and the shoe, it goes against keeping you warm. It gets, you want that volume to stay the same. So it's usually something to go on the outside to prevent it. But there's a lot of technical clothing out there. 2 companies I would probably suggest that all they do is cycling clothing is one is Primal Wear, which are in Denver, Colorado, is their main place, and also Jackaroo, which is the other clothing company where you can do custom stuff and that kind of thing. Both companies will be more than happy to talk you through their line and help you identify what clothing is going to be the best riding for what temperature in your neck of the woods, because that's all they do. And they know their product line and how it fits too. Fit is going to be a very important piece of it. So I would specifically target a company that's all they do is clothing and contact them directly versus, I hate to say it, but even though they do a good job on some of their other stuff, but the bigger brands like Trek Specialized and whoever that sells clothing in addition to everything else, they may not be it may have like the technical pieces that they may need, but they may not have the support to try to help you through that journey to find out what clothing works best for you. And price points might be pretty expensive. But once you figure out what works for you for that first initial investment, then you can go bargain shop later and go, oh, I want one of these, and I get a backup, that kind of thing, or a different style. And then you can shop and get the discount, whatever. You might still find discounts now, but I mean, you can shop from there. But once you get your core set of clothing, but here's the thing, cycling clothing doesn't wear out. I mean, it's like you buy it and I have jerseys that are 20 years old. I just don't fit them anymore. I changed. They didn't change. They're fine. I'm a little bigger now, so it's harder to fit into them. But they never wore out. If you wear out a pair of shorts, you've done so much riding that it warrants you to buy 3 more sets. I mean, let's put it that way. So it's like if you do eventually wear them out, you're doing great. You're doing that much riding. But typically you do that investment, they last you for years. So don't worry about the price too much per se, just making sure it's the right fit and it does the right function for you. Hope that helps. Hopefully not confuse everybody out there. All righty. But a great question. Winter is coming. And for winterizing bikes, there's a whole bunch of theories on that. Basically just get out there and ride it. And be careful, icy conditions and so forth of obvious. A bigger tread, lower pressure tires, that kind of thing. But also keep in mind that your pressure change may happen in your tire. If your bike's in the garage or the house where it's warmer and you go outside, it might, it might change on you. So you want to be careful of that as well. Nobody wants to fix a flat when it's 30 degrees with a wind chill of something cold and you got snow, ice crystals shooting you in the face. So, keep mindful of your rides, be closer to home, more closer to civilian areas. Don't go totally remote, because, just safety first. Always think about safety first, that kind of thing. Salty maker. My kids bike went, and my kids want e-bikes. I tell them to paddle faster. Well, yeah. Yeah, don't give them the cheap ones either. You might burn down your house, so be careful with that. Oh, Chris W 5B, thanks for chiming in. Thanks for jumping on this random chat. Shop Dog Cycles has a ton of parts. I think I saw them on eBay too. They have an eBay store. So yeah. There's some eBay stores there that looks like they're from a shop or similar to what I do, and they have a ton of parts and they've been around for a long time. If you're buying used parts or frames or anything like that, I just look at the reviews and see if it's over 1,000. Therefore, if it's over that amount, you're kind of knowing that's what they do, and they're cleaning the parts, inspecting, and making sure they're at least decent. They'll do that if they're a mechanic or knowing of cleaning parts and so forth, because they don't want the stuff to come back or be refunded. Because eBay is definitely a buyer's protected platform, so we want to make sure the part is what they're expecting to get, like clean, it works, that kind of thing, because you can do a claim and sellers have less protections. Let's put it that way. We have less chances of losing than the buyer being, whatever. So if they're doing it as a business, definitely, I bought from shops like that to retro fix, finish bikes up that I had. Yeah, to replace a 15-year-old Force big ring, and they had trouble sourcing it, but eventually got one back. Oh, nice. Black instead of gray. Cool. Yeah, so some of them, that's what they're doing, and they're getting bikes. They're probably in a bigger metropolitan area more than me, and able to, dive into their used market and buy stuff for sure. Yeah, you can do, there's some cross clothing. That's a great point, Chris. There's a cross, if you're a runner and you may have some technical pieces that you can still use for cycling. The only bit is for cycling, you're bent over more and it's longer in the back to cover your butt, so you don't get a icicle up the wedge. So you have any exposed skin. That's the other thing. You just want to cover that exposed skin so you don't get frostbite in real cold temperatures. But yeah, you'll notice like that cold patch, like, oh, kind of like a wind burn almost, that kind of thing. So yeah. Yeah, base layer, maybe 1 or 2. I don't go over 3 layers. I have a base layer, a technical piece to wick, and then like a shell for colder temperatures. And if it gets any colder than that, I'm probably not riding very far for very long. And I make it sure it's a loop so I can get back pretty quick if need be. Things go sideways on me. Yeah, great. That's a great insights there, Salty Maker, for clothing. Yeah, I still have so you have some clothing that goes back to 2010. I have stuff that's late 90s that still work. Like I mentioned before, it just don't fit me anymore. I was a lot thinner lad then. And the clothing too, some cycling clothing, that's another thing for fit. It usually goes on the skinnier side. So, talk to them if you can to get a sizing appropriate for your measurements, that kind of thing. Oh, you're a fan of Voller cycling clothing? Yeah, I haven't seen much of them of late, but I've seen them in the years past. But then again, cycling clothing is not I dive in niche and know all end all of cycling clothing brands, and some have come and gone too. But yeah, that's another brand that's been legit. I think I have a set of their stuff that was a sample at one point. And some of these companies, they'll do logoing and so forth. We want to do a team thing, like Jackaroo. If you want to do a team thing or funny or whatever, same thing with Primal. And I'm not sure if Pearl Zumi's around anymore or not. They got bought and sold and switched out. So they used to be pretty big in the cycling clothing realm. And I think Shimano doesn't own them anymore. I think they're owned by some other, or maybe bought twice since then. They used to have offices here in Boulder, Colorado, or Lafayette, but that's nor here nor there anymore. Oh boy. So yeah, it's fall or a little colder, but yeah, you can layer up, get those miles in, or get yourself a smart or dumb, do a highway to nowhere to keep those legs rotating, or go to the gym and just keep the endurance up. I've for those who are just starting cycling, if it doesn't take much to keep those legs going, so it's not so painful at the beginning of the year for some of those bigger rides. Go in once or twice a week and get an hour or so on the trainer bike, or you can set one up in your basement if you have the ability of doing that, just to keep it, keep that muscle memory going, that kind of thing. You don't have to do huge amount unless you're training, then you'll already know, you already have your own thing. But for those who are just, I got into cycling this year, I love it. It's like just, do a spin class here and there, or just get the, dumb trainers you can pick up for like $20 in your neck of the woods, because nobody wants those anymore. And you want one. But if you really are pressed for time and space and all of that, that's an opportunity for you to keep those legs warmed up. And the used market's so cheap, so you can get a cheap bike and a cheap trainer, probably all under a couple $100. Set it all up down in your basement. Just make sure you put a towel underneath the whole rig, and then you sweat, so you want to make sure you cover up the bits that you sweat onto the bike, because your sweat is very corrosive. And when you're baking yourself inside a house with no wind chill or no wind or anything, or get a fan to help you cool off, though that salt in I think ammonia too in your sweat will corrode the bikes like no other. Worked on a few nasty trainer bikes, and oh man, it's like you almost feel like you need to wear a hazmat suit to work on some of those. It was so nasty. But yeah, if you can keep the sweat as much as possible off of that, that'll save the bike, especially if you're using your current bike and you just want to put it indoors for trainer. And make sure you're aware of what trainer bits need to be. So if it's a tire driven, old school one, you need a specific tire for trainer so you don't wear out your current rubber, because they'll blow through standard tires. If you're doing like Kicker's been around for so long now, they've had a lot of used ones in the used market. You can probably pick one up for a drivetrain one. Those will probably be more preferred and have more fun with it, keep you mentally engaged versus losing your mind going a highway to nowhere. But there's opportunities there to keep you going. In my neck of the woods, we have, you'll get a snowstorm, but it'll clear out, and our communities are really good at snow plowing the bike paths, almost more than the roads, believe it or not. So our opportunities here riding in the winter are a lot more often. Not like every day during the winter, but you might have a snowstorm and it might push you out a week, but even in January, there'll be a handful of days you can actually go ride if you have the flexibility in your schedule to do so. Because it'll be sunny. It might be 30 degrees, but if it's sunny, the heat and the dryness of the air here, it's fine. Once it gets cloudy, though, you'll freeze like an icicle, frozen bicycle. But other than that, though, you can do several bits of rides during the winter. We lived in Michigan for 2 years, and you have that cloud cover for months. That makes it really hard to ride. And that's where like the fat bikes have become a huge thing in those market in that area, that kind of deal. Those guys, they ride because there's no mountains. So there's nothing to do besides cross-country skiing or snowshoeing in that particular area. So all depends on your area. And indoor training there was 100 times more popular than it is here. So that all depends where you live. That'll work for you. And, bike shops will be accommodating for those particular markets in those areas too, for sure. Oh, am I seeing more of the cart, like the cart trikes type bikes? Is that the cargo bikes? We had an influx of those. I wouldn't say huge. They're still popular, especially in the bigger metro area, like in Denver. Locally here, you'll see a few, but some people just pull trailers. But there's a decent amount, and the e-bike version of those are probably more popular more than others than just the standard ones. So yeah, those are still going. I still see them for sure. Thanks for the question there, Rick Heckle. Hexel. Sorry. Yeah, Chris, the Cyclops. If you see, Cyclops is a huge brand in this trainer world. And even I have a few sitting on the floor here where they're years, almost over a decade old, and or almost 2 decades old. They'll work fine. Wind ones are noisy as hell, but if you get a magnetic one, that cuts down that sound. And the fluid trainers were the top end back then, and you can find those probably pretty cheap. When they used to go for like $300 or $400, you can probably pick one up for less than 50. Again, because everything's gone to the smart trainer, and even people have done any trainers, they ditching their old trainers to go with the smart trainer because it's so more, engaging and able to do those programs and so forth, which you can still kind of do with the dumb trainer. There's a whole bunch of programs out there for that, for sure. Here's the magnetic. Yeah. Well, the magnetic's not going to leak. So, and it's just U power tearing it up. Yeah. So another wild and crazy week. If you're looking in from out of states to the inside of the United States, we don't know what the hell's going on. Yeah. So hopefully everybody's getting prepared for winter and holidays, and trying to this for us family wise, where it's like the crunch period from Halloween till the week after New Year's is just one colossal roller coaster ride of things we have to do, family, birthdays, and the holidays, and everything in between. And hopefully, you guys can get some time on the bike and do some exercise and get out and kind of let the craziness just shed off you, so you feel a little more humble going into the holidays. I would highly recommend do early Christmas shopping while the stuff is still available, if you have the means to do so, which is the other thing, especially here in the States. And, if you're thinking of specific things for specific family members, cycling or alike or not, this is the time probably to start thinking of getting that stuff in. Because especially on the bike front, if you're looking for bikes or fixing up stuff, that might be a little problematic going into the holiday season, depending what you're doing, for sure. Oh, just Rise Zip 2001. I'm looking forward to winter. I live in the snowmobile country and trails get groomed. It's a blast spending hours on my fatty. Oh yeah, fatty in the forest. Yeah. If you don't know, some people don't. I didn't know. I mean, we sold fat bikes here when they first came out. Then we moved to Michigan, and I was like, what's up this? And took some of our demos that we had, and I went to go, oh, I can just be able to ride over snow in general. You really can't. You just sink right in. So with Just Ride Zip, mentioned like the snowmobilers are patting it down so you have packed snow. And once you pack that snow, it's like, man, it's fun. Then if you do fall, it's like poof, you land in a pile of snow, which is kind of fun. This definitely gives you engaging. Yeah, in Michigan, they'd have like fat tire races, but they'd have to pre-pack the trail. So it's very interesting type of riding for sure. There is definitely a market for it to keep people active in the wintertime, especially if there's other activities that are not available. But yeah, it could be very pretty. I've ridden in snow back in the day in the 90s and in the mountain trails and so forth on wider snowpack situations. And it's really a different experience, especially if it's a trail you've been riding during the summertime. It's like, wow, this really changes it. But, for me, I really, if I could just get on a plane and go to Vegas and ride down there for a week or two, that'd be nice too. Their temperatures are cooler, but they don't have the snow. And yeah, from coming from Colorado, their cooler temperatures are fine. it's perfect. And Vegas is one of those places when I was talking about southern states, it's what they call the shoulder season. I never heard this before, and some people haven't heard it either. It's like your bike season is like in the fall and the spring, because it's either too cold for the locals or too hot in summer, which is very interesting to me. For me, their cold is fine. You can still ride, and they still get sun in the wintertime too. So in any case. Oh, riding across frozen lakes. As ice fishing, yeah, that would be interesting. I've heard like up north back in the 90s, they would put screws in their tires, and then they'll do Tuffy liners to prevent it from flatting, or TR tubes too. And it'd be like just spiked tires, not just studded, but like ice cutting tires. I don't know if that's a great idea, but you can spend like hours with a drill prepping those tires for off season. Yeah, that could be, got to watch out for clearance, but yeah, that sounds crazy. Well, in any case, just wanted to jump on and say hi to my community and happy Halloween if you celebrate it. Happy Friday for those, and I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend. Just wanted to give you an update of what bike shop life is on a Friday. We're just trying to wrap up the loose ends, get ready for the weekend, and do our thing. And hopefully you guys have some good weather in your neck of the woods, do some riding still. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with me on a Friday. And hopefully we shared some insights. And yeah, we'll see if this is something we want to continue on Fridays. So if you like something like this on Fridays, give it a thumbs up. and like and subscribe, of course. A lot more of you jumped in than I thought, being a preemptive, literally just 5 minutes, like, oh, I should do this. As I haven't even put on my stuff yet. I'm like, it is. It's Casual Friday. And nope, not going to happen. You guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for hanging out with me in the garage. And on Tuesdays, I'll be here, Shock Talk Tuesday. And hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And please go out there and have a great ride.